Hi there, this is Joan Greenfield. I am an RDAEF2. I also hold an orthodontic permit license. I was a professor at Sacramento City College in the dental health department for 37 years, and I am an RDAEF2 educator with J Productions Dental Seminars. I also happen to be the CEO of the company. So I'm only saying that so that you know that the information that you're getting in this presentation is legitimate and correct. This recording is happening in June of 2020. And so we're going to break this into a couple of sections. So again, this is part one, RDAEF2 utilization. We use the term EF2 instead of RDAEF2. I'll explain that a little bit more as we go along. EF2 was negotiated. I was the chief negotiator with the California Dental Association and the Dental Assisting Alliance, got together and finally agreed on some things together and came up with the RDAEF2. And they were signed into law in late 2009. One of the reasons we're doing this presentation is that it's very difficult to find accurate information about EF2. If you were to go on a computer and type in extended functions or expanded duty stuff, you're going to find some information that really doesn't relate very well to California. Here's a map of the country. You can see some stars listed here at this point in time. There are 7 other states that allow for what are called EFTAs, extended function dental assistants, and you can, if you look down here at the bottom, you'll see that they're very limited. Some limited to class 1 and 5 restorations only, some others, for example, there's a state that allows an EFTA to place an amalgam but not finish and carve it, and most people aren't even doing amalgam. So California, the reason we have a big old star here is because California is unique in the scope of practice that we were able to negotiate between the Dental Assisting Alliance and the California Dental Association. So it makes it very different from other states. So that's why I'm helping with this. This is a presentation that I used to do live once a year, but as we know, lots of people can't give up extra time to come to seminars. So we're doing this out there on YouTube so that everybody has access to it. Next thing, rather than take the actual legal language that exists in the California Dental Practice Act about the scope of practice for the Registered Dental Assistant and extended functions too, I'm just kind of condensing everything. So amalgams, fillings, place, carve, and adjust. Composites, fillings, place, form, finish, adjust. Glass ionomer restoratives, place, form, finish, adjust. This could be any other material because the actual true regulatory language says placement finish of all direct restorations and the placement finish of all indirect restorations. So that kind of covers a lot of ground. We purposely developed the language that way so that it would be useful for a long time. If a new material comes out, you don't have to go back and try to change the Dental Practice Act. So whether this is glass iron or composite amalgam or some other filling material in the future, that can all be done. Impressions for crown and bridge, that's been a duty in the EF category for a long time. Impression for tooth-borne appliances. We wish that hadn't been just tooth-borne appliances, but there was a dean from one of the dental schools that came forward at one of the hearings with the legislature and said that didn't believe that dentists could even do good edentulous impressions, so that EF shouldn't be allowed to do that. So if there is at least one tooth there, then we can go ahead and take impressions, final impressions. Permanent crown and bridge, veneers, adjustment, cement, and bond. Endodontic procedures, though those are somewhat limited. Patient assessment, including oral cancer screenings and additional information. And then as an option that's an add-on, the EF2 can do ITRs, which are intermediary temporary restorations, which are kind of the scoop out, hand scoop decay out, and place an adhesive restoration. Here they're referring to a glass ionomer that would release fluoride into the area. This is an add-on. We don't have it as part of our course, but because of the patient requirements to do it, we didn't want to make that burden to everyone. But it is something that can be added very easily to the scope of practice if someone works in a primary care clinic and wants to add that procedure. So, question: where do EF2s work? Well, for a lot of time, people thought that EF2s would be primarily working in primary health clinics, and in fact, the information changes a little bit as time goes along. But you can see from this orange and blue area that primarily EF2s are working in private practice, either private group practices or single doctor practices. The use of an EF2 in clinics is growing, but it is still primarily a private office. EF2 is a whole new dental profession and needs to be looked at from that way. So one of the reasons that we don't say RDA EF2 very much is because the EF2 really, if you fully utilize that person, and even though they can do all DA and RDA duties, really should be focusing on restorative procedures. So let's take a look at procedure management. Here's an example. This could be an amalgam composite glass iono restoration. You typically, with a patient, would go in and verify the procedure off your chart from your exam, give local anesthesia, place isolation, cut the preparation, place some matrices, do base liner or whatever you're going to do there in that area, and then do the restorative material, place, carve, contour, finish, so on and so forth. You notice there's a couple of asterisks here, meaning that the placement of matrices and bases and liners is a RDA duty, but they're rarely done because they're not really sequential. So even though they can be done, they're not usually done by the auxiliary. So let's go over to the EF2 model. Verify the procedure, give local anesthesia. This would be the dentist. Isolation, probably by the EF. The doctor would cut the prep and then walk away. The matrices, the base liner, or anything in that area, the restorative material, place, carve, finish, adjust occlusion on that restoration. The only thing left here would be for the dentist to check the procedures that were performed before the patient is released, which is required by law for any procedure that is performed by an auxiliary. So that gives you a little idea of the difference here. You can see that quite a bit of this procedure is going to be performed by the EF2. All right, so it's something we figured out a few years ago, and it's called a production minute. This will just give either whether this is a dentist that's listening or an EF2 looking to talk to their dentist about a salary increase, or a person interested in becoming an EF2. This will help kind of what can you do as far as production goes, not only for the additional stuff for the patient, but for additional money for the office. So what we do is take the fee for the procedure and divide it by the typical time it takes to perform that procedure, and that comes up with a production minute. And these are very useful in figuring out exactly what can occur in the dental office with the EF2. So I'll give you a couple of real quick examples. Let's say here, and you can plug your own figures into this. Here we have two surface composite, $235. On average in this scenario, 45 minutes time is set aside in that operatory for the patient to do a two surface composite. If we divide 45 minutes in the $235, you get $5.22 per minute production minute. In this particular scenario in this office, the dentist takes 15 minutes to do anesthesia and cut the preparation, walks out, and the EF2 finishes everything, and they're taking up the remaining 30 minutes. They're generating $156.25. Another one, crown and bridge, $1,400 for a crown, average prep time 60 minutes, average seat time, if this is a lab crown. Even if it's a cadmial restoration, typically it's about the same time total together, so we're going to add the 60 and 30 together if it's a lab crown, and if it's not, we're running the whole time for an hour and a half to 2 hours perhaps for a cadmial restoration. So we take 1,400 divided by 90 minutes. That's $15.55 per minute. The dentist is involved for about 15 minutes at the prep, doing the prep and the anesthesia, and another 5 minutes at the seat time if it's a separate appointment. So a total of 20 minutes there. And the EF is taking up the remaining 70 minutes for both the prep and seating. The dentist is involved for 20 minutes total, generating a production of $311. And the F2 is generating production of 1,089. So this kind of gives you a little idea how to start looking at production values for the EF2. Our suggestion would be, and we have our students do this, go through every procedure that a EF can participate in and figure out the procedure. One surface composite, 177 fee, takes 60 minutes, production per minute $295. The dentist is involved typically for 25 minutes in that, they're generating 73.75. The F2 is involved for the remaining 35 minutes, and they're generating $103.25. So if you go through every single procedure and do that, then it makes it really easy to go through an appointment where you have 2 or 3 or 4 restorations happening and figure out what the production is for each of those procedures. And so that's a handy thing to have. One of the interesting things I find about the dental practice is that we've kind of been operating at a little bit of a disadvantage for years, and I'm not quite sure that the practice management folks haven't picked up on this. Our dental offices are sort of like having an apartment building with 6 apartments in it, but 3 of them are perpetually empty or not rented out. And it doesn't make a lot of business sense to operate an office that way. So here's your typical schedule. Here we are. We're in this room, but no one's here. We're in this room now, but no one's here. We're in this room and no one's here, so on and so forth. So back and forth, back and forth. There might be someone sitting in here, but we're not doing anything. We're not producing anything. So by taking the EF2 and utilizing them fully, we can now fill those other rooms simultaneously, generate some additional income here. So if I go back to the previous slide, we had 10,000 here. We go here, we're jumping up to 14,000 or almost 15,000. Now those figures will change depending on what it is you're doing, but there's a significant difference by being able to add the EF2 to the office, fully utilize them. This does require a change in the front office and how they schedule, and we'll go over that a little bit in a couple of minutes. So although this entire thing is not all about just production, production becomes very important, and I can see how you might have that change. You don't want to increase production, but you want more time to do those other things that are involved in running a dental practice. You have extra time to do that because the EF is finishing most of your procedures that they can legally do. One of many benefits is that it also gives you a lot of extra time to do more thorough case presentations. I've had a number of dentists tell me that they've had a significant increase in patient acceptance of complicated treatment because they've been able to spend a lot more time with them than they used to be able to.